Emily Carter stood near the tall window of her apartment, looking at the lights of Seattle glowing through the evening rain. The glass was cool beneath her fingers, and the quiet sound of raindrops sliding down the window made the room feel calm. It was the kind of night when the world outside felt distant and slow. But Emily's heart was not slow. It was beating fast. Her eyes were closed. She had been standing there for almost a minute now, trying to follow the simple message Daniel had sent earlier that evening: "Close your eyes and trust me." At the time, she had smiled when she read it. Daniel had always been a little mysterious in a sweet, harmless way. He liked surprises, and Emily knew tonight was supposed to be one of them. Still, the longer she stood there with her eyes closed, the more nervous she felt. Behind her, the apartment looked warm and welcoming. The small living room had soft yellow lights that made the space feel cozy. Emily had cleaned everything carefully earlier that afternoon. The couch pillows were straight. The kitchen counter was spotless. On the small wooden table near the couch, 2 wine glasses waited beside a bottle of red wine. Next to them sat a small wrapped gift. Emily had wrapped it herself only an hour ago. She had hesitated before buying it. Part of her had wondered if it was too soon, after everything that had happened in her life during the past year. Giving someone a gift again felt like stepping onto a bridge she was not completely sure would hold. But Daniel had been patient. With her, no more patient than anyone else. And that meant something. Emily slowly opened her eyes and glanced at the clock on the wall. 7:59 p.m., 1 minute left. She closed her eyes again and let out a slow breath. A year ago, Emily never would have imagined standing in her apartment like this, waiting for a man again. After her divorce, she had promised herself she would never rush into another relationship. Her marriage had ended quietly but painfully. There had been no dramatic fights, no screaming arguments, just months of distance and silence that slowly grew between two people who had once loved each other deeply. One day, they both realized something simple. The love was gone when the divorce papers were finally signed. Emily had felt more empty than angry. She moved into this small Seattle apartment and began rebuilding her life, piece by piece. Work helped. Emily worked as a graphic designer for a marketing company downtown. The job kept her busy and gave her something to focus on. During the first few months after the divorce, she often stayed late at the office just to avoid the quiet apartment waiting for her. But slowly, things changed. She began taking evening walks along the streets near Pike Place Market. She started reading novels again before bed. She even joined a small book club that met at a cozy bookstore cafe every Thursday night. That cafe was where she met Daniel Brooks. The memory still made her smile. It had been a rainy evening, just like tonight. Emily had arrived early to the book club meeting and ordered a coffee. The cafe was warm and filled with the smell of fresh pastries. Most of the tables were full, but one seat remained open across from a man reading a thick hardcover novel. Emily had politely asked if the seat was taken. The man looked up and smiled kindly. "No, please," he said. "Go ahead." That man was Daniel. He had calm brown eyes and a relaxed way of speaking that immediately made Emily feel comfortable. They didn't talk much at first. Both of them spent most of the time reading quietly. But when the book club meeting started, they discovered they were discussing the same novel. Daniel's opinions were thoughtful and gentle. He never tried to dominate the conversation. Instead, he listened carefully to everyone before sharing his thoughts. Emily noticed that after the meeting ended, the two of them walked outside together. The rain had just started, and they stood beneath the cafe awning for a moment before heading in different directions. Daniel had smiled and said something simple. "I hope I see you here again next week." Emily had nodded. "I think you will." And she did return the next week. Then, the week after that, their conversations slowly grew longer. Sometimes they talked about books. Other times they talked about life, work, travel, or childhood memories. Daniel never pushed Emily to share personal details about her divorce. He seemed to understand that she would speak about it only when she was ready, that patience was rare, and Emily appreciated it more than she could explain. Over the next few months, their friendship grew naturally. They began meeting outside the book club too. Coffee turned into dinners. Coffee turned into weekend walks along the Seattle waterfront. Daniel had a calm presence that made Emily feel safe again. Not pressured, not rushed, just safe. That was why tonight mattered so much. It was the first time Daniel was visiting her apartment. Emily heard a car pass outside the building. Her heart jumped slightly. Maybe 'twas him. She adjusted her posture and tried to relax. The message Daniel had sent earlier replayed in her mind again. I'll come by around 8. Close your eyes and trust me. What kind of surprise required closed eyes? Emily had imagined many possibilities during the past hour. Maybe he had brought flowers. Maybe he had planned some romantic gesture. Maybe he was going to confess something important. The thought made her heart beat even faster. Emily had not said the word love to anyone in a very long time. But sometimes, when she looked at Daniel, she felt something close to it. A feeling of warmth and quiet happiness. A feeling that life might still have beautiful surprises waiting. The clock clicked softly. 8 p.m. Right on time. Then knock. The sound echoed through the apartment. Emily's breath caught in her chest. He was here. Her eyes remained closed. For a moment, everything felt still. Then she heard the soft sound of the door opening. Daniel had a key to the building entrance downstairs, but not to her apartment door. She had unlocked it earlier so he could walk in without her needing to break. To surprise, she heard footsteps entering the room, slow, calm, familiar. Emily smiled slightly. Daniel, she whispered. The footsteps stopped, but Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, Emily heard something unexpected. Another set of footsteps. Her smile faded for a second. She wondered if she had imagined the sound. But no, there it was again. A second person moving inside the room. Emily's eyes opened quickly. She turned around. Daniel was standing near the doorway, smiling nervously. But he was not alone. Standing beside him was another man. The man looked to be about the same age as Daniel, maybe mid-30s. He was tall with short dark hair and a friendly expression. Emily blinked in confusion. This was not what she expected. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Hey, he said softly. Emily looked between the two men. Hi, she replied. Slowly, Daniel took a small step forward. Emily, he said gently, this is my best friend, Michael. The man beside him smiled politely. Nice to meet you, Emily. Emily forced a polite smile back, though her mind was spinning with questions. Why? Was Daniel bringing a friend to their private evening together? Nothing about this situation made sense. Daniel seemed to notice her confusion immediately. Before you panic, he said quickly, this isn't some weird surprise party or anything? Emily raised an eyebrow slightly. That's good too. No, she replied. Michael chuckled lightly, trying to ease the tension. Daniel looked at Emily again, his expression more serious now. I know tonight might feel strange, he said, but I didn't want to keep something important from you. Emily crossed her arms gently, still processing the moment. Something important, eh? She asked. Daniel nodded. Double quotes, yes. He glanced briefly at Michael, who gave him a supportive look. Then Daniel looked back at Emily. Michael has been part of my life for 20 years. He said. Emily listened quietly. We've been through everything together, Daniel continued. College, bad jobs, breakups, family problems, all of it. Michael added softly, we're basically brothers. Emily nodded slowly. I understand close friendships, she said. Daniel exhaled slowly as if gathering courage. But this friendship, it's also part of who I am, he explained. Emily tilted her head slightly. She could sense the weight in his voice. Outside the window, rain began falling harder, tapping against the glass like soft applause. Daniel gestured toward the couch. "Can we sit?" he asked. Emily hesitated only a second. Before nodding, the three of them moved to the living room area and sat down. The wine glasses on the table suddenly looked awkwardly out of place. Emily glanced at them and almost laughed at the strange situation. Daniel followed her gaze and gave an embarrassed smile. "I guess this wasn't the romantic entrance you expected?" Emily shook her head slightly. "No, not exactly." Michael leaned forward slightly, resting his hands together. "Daniel told me how much you mean to him," said kindly. Emily looked at Daniel again. He looked nervous, more nervous than she had ever seen him. "I care about you deeply, Emily," Daniel said. His voice was sincere. Emily could see that clearly. "But there's something about my life I should have explained earlier," he continued. Emily leaned back slightly. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Daniel paused. The room felt heavy with anticipation. Michael looked at him again and nodded as if silently encouraging him. Daniel took a slow breath. Then he began speaking, and as the truth slowly unfolded, Emily realized something unexpected. The evening she thought would be simple was about to change everything she believed about the man sitting in front of her. Emily sat frozen for a moment after Daniel finished speaking. The rain had slowed outside, leaving the streets glistening with reflections of city lights. She could feel her heart racing, a mix of confusion, curiosity, and an odd sense of calm, all at once. Everything she thought she understood about the evening suddenly felt more complicated. She looked at Daniel, searching his eyes, trying to read the emotions hidden behind his calm voice. Then she turned to Michael, who sat quietly beside him, observing the scene with patience and understanding. It was strange to feel comfortable with someone she had just met. But there was a warmth in Michael's demeanor that made her trust him instantly. "So, you're saying that Michael has always been a big part of your life in this way?" she asked slowly, trying to grasp the situation. Daniel nodded. "Yes, we've shared everything, our successes, mistakes, heartbreaks. We've always been honest with each other about our lives." Emily leaned back slightly, folding her hands in her lap. She wasn't angry, she was processing. Her mind spun with questions. Yet a part of her realized she respected Daniel's honesty. She appreciated that he had not hidden anything from her. Not tonight, not ever. The room felt heavy, but safe, charged with emotions that words could barely express. Michael cleared his throat softly. "Daniel wanted to be honest with you from the start. That's why I'm here tonight," he said. Emily nodded subtly, feeling a strange mix of relief and curiosity. She realized that Daniel's decision to include Michael was not about testing her or making her uncomfortable. It was about showing trust and transparency to things she had learned to value above all else after the past year. Daniel was exposing his vulnerability, and she could feel it. She respected it, even if it was confusing at first. She understood the courage it took for him to reveal this part of his life. Daniel shifted in his seat, looking more vulnerable than Emily had ever seen him. "I didn't want to hide anything from you," he said quietly, his voice almost trembling. "If we are going to build something real, it has to be based on honesty, complete honesty." Emily's mind flashed back to her own experiences. She thought about how much easier it would have been for Daniel to hide this part of his life and pretend it didn't exist. Instead, he had chosen to be upfront. That thought softened her heart. She understood that love wasn't just about passion or comfort. It was about trust, respect, and willingness to be seen as you truly are. Michael stood up slowly, breaking the tension in the room. "I think you two need a few minutes alone," he said kindly, offering a small, reassuring smile. Daniel looked hesitant for a moment, but Michael continued. "Trust me, it's important for her to decide what she feels next without distractions." Emily felt grateful as Michael moved toward the door. Before leaving, he turned to her one last time. "Daniel is one of the most loyal people you'll ever meet. Whatever happens tonight, remember that." His words lingered in the room as the door clicked softly behind him. Now it was just Emily and Daniel. The quiet that followed was almost deafening, yet comforting. Emily's mind was racing, but she felt an unusual calm at the same time. Daniel shifted his position slightly, looking nervous. "So, what are you thinking?" he asked, his voice gentle, almost vulnerable. Emily stayed quiet for a moment, allowing herself to breathe deeply. She could see Daniel's worry, the fear that his honesty might have pushed her away. But she also felt something else, in appreciation for his bravery and sincerity. She leaned back, trying to collect her thoughts. Then she laughed softly, almost in disbelief. "You really know how to plan an unforgettable evening," she said, her voice lighter now. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, smiling awkwardly. "Yeah, maybe I miscalculated," he admitted. Emily felt a warmth in her chest as she watched him. Despite the surprise, despite the unexpected presence of Michael, she realized that Daniel's intention was never to confuse her. He wanted to be honest and vulnerable, and that mattered more than anything else. She walked slowly toward the window and looked out at the city lights reflecting off the wet streets. The rain had stopped completely, and the air smelled fresh. It was like the world outside had been cleansed, mirroring the honesty now in the room. After a few moments, she turned back to Daniel, her expression softening. "You didn't break my trust tonight," she said quietly. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "I didn't?" he asked, unsure. "No," Emily replied, sitting back. Down on the couch beside him, "You gave me the truth. That's all that matters." Daniel exhaled slowly, relief washing over his face. He reached out, placing a hand lightly on the couch near hers, not touching, just offering presence. Emily felt a flutter in her chest. She realized that trust was powerful. It could feel like a fragile thing, yet strong enough to create a deep connection in a single evening. Emily's attention shifted to the small wrapped box on the table. She picked it up and held it gently in her hands. "'Cause this gift I bought you," she said with a small, playful smile. "Tonight is about more than surprises." Daniel raised an eyebrow, curious. "You got me a gift?" he asked softly, his voice filled with mild amusement and anticipation. Emily nodded, handing it to him carefully. Daniel took it in his hands, examining it as if it were something fragile. The wrapping paper was simple, but the care in which it was done showed thoughtfulness. He opened the box slowly. Inside lay a small silver compass. Daniel looked puzzled for a moment before Emily explained. "Life doesn't always go in straight lines. Sometimes people just need help finding direction," she said gently. Her words were soft, but they carried weight. Daniel stared at the compass in his hands, then back at Emily. For the first time that evening, a sense of calm washed over him. The nervousness, the uncertainty, the fear of pushing her away, all of it melted slightly in her presence. He realized that this evening, as chaotic as it had seemed at first, had brought them closer. Emily smiled softly, seeing the change in him. "I wanted tonight to be special, Daniel. Not just for us, but to show that honesty matters," she said. He nodded slowly, appreciating her words. It wasn't just a romantic gesture. It was an acknowledgement that trust and transparency were just as important as attraction and affection. In that small moment, they both understood that the night was not just about a surprise visit or an unexpected guest. It was about building the foundation for something real. Outside, the city was quiet now. The streets gleamed with reflections from the streetlights. Emily felt a wave of emotion, gratitude, relief, and hope all mixed together. Daniel looked at her, his expression open and sincere. He did not speak for a moment, letting the silence between them carry meaning. Then he finally said, "I'm glad you understand." Emily nodded. "I do. And I appreciate it more than I can say," she replied. Their eyes met, and in that, Simple glance, there was a silent promise of patience, understanding, and a willingness to navigate life's unexpected turns together. The night continued softly, without urgency. They talked about small things, first the weather, the sounds of the city, the little details that made the world feel familiar. Then, gradually, they spoke about hopes and dreams. Emily shared small stories about her childhood, Daniel about the little adventures he had taken with Michael over the years. Each story built a sense of connection, weaving them closer together. The evening was not about rushing or impressing. It was about being fully present, experiencing honesty and trust in its purest form. Emily realized that sometimes the most meaningful moments were not the grand gestures, but the quiet, intimate ones. Sitting beside Daniel, sharing laughter, stories, and unspoken understanding, she felt a warmth she had not experienced in a long time. It was not passion or infatuation. It was a deeper, more enduring connection. And in that connection, she felt hope. Hope that the past did not define the future, and that trust could be rebuilt even after heartbreak. Daniel glanced at the compass, again turning it over in his hand. "I'll keep this with me," he said quietly, "to remember direction and honesty." Emily smiled, a soft, genuine smile. "Exactly," she replied. It was a simple agreement, yet it carried weight. They had navigated through confusion, unexpected revelations, and vulnerability. And they were still here, together, choosing to move forward. As the evening drew on, Emily and Daniel remained close, talking quietly and sharing small touches of comfort, a hand on the couch, a glance that lingered longer than necessary. Outside, the city had settled into a calm night. But inside the apartment, a new sense of possibility filled the air. Emily realized that life could surprise her in ways she never imagined. And Daniel understood that being honest, even in difficult moments, could open doors to deeper connections. By the time they finally decided to close the evening, a quiet peace had settled between them. Emily looked at Daniel and smiled. "Tonight was unforgettable," she said. Daniel returned the smile, feeling the same truth in her words. They both understood that this was only the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were willing to explore it together, step by step, with honesty, trust, and a quiet hope guiding them forward.